Hi, folks. Thanks for joining. We're going to start right at the top of the hour. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Ryan Pacchini, the host of the Expert Solution webinar series. We're going to get started right at the top of the hour, so hang tight. We'll be with you in just a moment. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Ryan Pacchini. I'm the host of the Expert Solution webinar series, the head of go-to-market strategy here at Total Expert. The title of our webinar today is Uncovering Opportunities with Your Existing Database. The promise of the Expert Solution webinar series is that we focus on a single problem that we solve for financial institutions. Today, we're going to be talking about cross-sell. I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, James White and Samantha Thielen, also Brian Clark, the SVP at Dart Bank. Brian, we'll give you a moment to introduce yourself in just a second. For our viewers today, just a reminder that a recording of this webinar will be sent out within 72 hours. We will do your absolute best to answer questions in real time throughout the webinar. Please put them in chat as they come up and we'll address them. And with that, I think I've taken care of the housekeeping items. We'll go ahead and get started. But you've probably seen James White, who's the General Manager of Banking and Credit Unions here at Total Expert. James, great to see you. Samantha Thielen, who you may have worked with. If you're a customer of Total Expert, she is the team lead for the sales engineering group and one of the folks here at Total Expert who knows our product and the industry better than anyone I know. And Brian Clark, a customer of Total Expert and the SVP at Dart Bank. Brian, would love for you to just say a quick hello and a little bit about your role at Dart Bank, please.
Sure thing. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, I'm Brian Clark, and I'm with Dart Bank. We're in Lansing area. Well, we're in Michigan in general, but I'm in the Lansing area, and I'm a 30-year mortgage veteran, or almost 30 years in the mortgage industry. My role with Dart Bank is not only on the residential mortgage lending side, but I also work on the consumer lending side, and I work with our marketing group here. So I'm very actively involved in the Total Expert solution.
Great, Brian, thanks for being with us. James, Samantha, thanks for joining us as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. The agenda for today is going to look similar to other agendas that you may have seen if you've joined an Expert Solution webinar. This is our 9th episode, we're proud to say, but we're going to follow the sequence that you're probably familiar with. So we're going to start with capturing some of the challenges, capturing share of wallet, being able to cross-sell when it comes to both age-old challenges and new challenges for banks and credit unions. We're going to talk about the different growth strategies that you could implement, how you drive change if you decide to take on one of those growth strategies. And we always conclude an Expert Solutions webinar with a demo of the Total Expert platform, a 5 to 8 minute demo with showing you exactly how we can help with this challenger opportunity of cross-sell or capturing share of wallet. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. James, I'm going to start with you. What are some of the age-old problems that banks and credit unions face when it comes to capturing share of wallet?
Yes, so that's a great question. So first off, it's really just still around relationship. We've heard about building relationships our entire lives, but the problem has been is as demographics have shifted and generations have shifted, the way that you build a relationship is very different than it has been in the past. And so you have to be able to find that balance between technology and human interaction. And we are still, as an industry, struggling to find that balance, I believe.
Brian, anything you'd add there?
Yeah, I would. I would say some of the challenges that we had, especially prior to Total Expert, was you know, the division between the mortgage department and the retail banking division and the consumer lending division, and just that sharing of data between the different divisions of a bank. And before Total Expert, we really didn't have a solution that could speak to all customers. You know, we were very siloed with our marketing automation and our marketing platforms that we had. And so now, you know, we're able to speak, you know, specifically to our entire database and without those different silos.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian and James. I know it's an organization-wide challenge. Given, Brian, your leadership role at Dart Bank, and James, what you see across our existing customers here at Total Expert, how do the share of wallet challenges apply specifically to the retail group within a bank? We know that's often where for many banks, that's where the relationship starts. So can you talk about capturing share of wallet within the retail division of a bank?
Yeah, so first off, you know, as what Brian had said, the silos are an age-old problem that we've been trying to crack. Being able to look at that full customer view and being able to understand, you know, what their needs are. It's the same thing on the retail side. It's being able to establish yourself as a trusted advisor, offering products and services to them that you know they need at that time to help them with their financial wellness. We've been trying to act on data since probably the mid-90s, whenever there was the big boom of data warehouses where we started to normalize data, but then still it's such a big ocean of data that's available just trying to understand how to act on it can be very difficult. And so now the retail side, especially with the things that have been going on in the news, it's even more important that we try to stop deposit runoff and deposit leakage, and making sure that we're really building that loyalty that we probably have taken for granted a little bit over the past few years.
Yeah, James, there's quite a few things there around deposit runoff and leakage and how that ties into capturing share wallet. We could probably spend a whole episode on, but let's we'll come back to some of that in a little bit. Brian, anything that you'd add to what James said specifically around capturing share wallet for the retail group of a bank that are kind of age-old challenges that our listeners should be tuned into?
Well, it's probably similar to what I said at the previous question. You know, the ability to communicate with your customers holistically at a level where you know, they're not different divisions, and being able to share data amongst similar to what James said, you know, being able to share data amongst the different divisions probably are some of our biggest challenges prior to Total Expert and what we've been able to do. So just that ability to cross sell a system that we can utilize that has everyone in there was our biggest challenge up until today.
Oh, that's great, Ryan. Maybe I'll start with you on this one. Obviously, using data and technology to break down some of those silos is something that we're helping you with. It seems to be a trend that a lot of banks and credit unions are struggling with. What are some of the emerging challenges that are coming into your view? What are some of the things that are on the horizon that are coming at you fast that you think are going to prevent Dart Bank from capturing share wallet?
Well, I think there's so many choices for consumers nowadays. I think about myself. I've got money in PayPal. I've got money in Venmo. I've got money in Amazon. I've got Acorns. Insurance companies are offering mortgages. There are just so many choices for consumers, and I think that's probably one of the. I don't know that it's necessarily an emerging challenge. I think it's actually a present challenge right now. So it's establishing that relationship to be their trusted advisor, and one that you are their go-to for all of the services that you offer. I think that's a challenge that we have. So for us, I would say it's just the sheer volume of choice that the consumer has.
Yeah, Brian, that's something that seems pretty consistent that we hear from our customers. So thanks for sharing that, James. One of the things that comes to mind for me is also the attention span of consumers, right? Just that in their personal lives, everything is fast, as instantaneous as something that banks and credit unions have to deal with. It's not just having the right products and services breaking down the walls, but it's also being able to connect with a very distracted consumer. Can you maybe touch on that and any other kind of emerging trends that you see when you're in conversations on a day-to-day basis?
Yes. So, first off, with the emerging trends, the big thing that I think that we sometimes lose sight of is that just because we have emerging issues that are coming up doesn't mean that the age-old issues have gone away. And so we can't be distracted by, still trying to solve some of those age-old problems that we've had, because as the economy shifts, as the market shifts, as the consumer shift, all those emerging trends come and go. And sometimes we sometimes can just follow the bouncing ball of buzzwords versus really just focusing on making sure that we're making an impact with our customers. Mm-hmm. And so from a mind share perspective, and trying to make sure that your customers or just your community is thinking about you when it comes time to make a decision or financial decision, it is very difficult these days because it is so fragmented. As Brian mentioned, all of those options, and including other things too, like some of these retail apps as well. Really, Starbucks or Chick-fil-A or some of these others, it really is almost death by a thousand cuts. And so we've got to find a way to separate ourselves. And the way that we do that, in my view, is making sure that we're building trust, because a lot of these big financial decisions, even with the younger demographics, they want to make that with a human being that they trust. And you want to be able to get that opportunity to have a conversation with them may be the first time they've ever bought a home, as an example, and being able to have somebody that they trust sitting on the other side of the phone or the other side of the desk, or however you communicate with them, is crucial. They're still looking for that education that a lot of us older individuals receive from our parents, but I don't think, my generation did a good job of teaching our kids, financial wellness, financial education, what the difference is between an ARM versus a 30-year fix, all those types of things.
Yeah, so James, maybe one thing I want to dig into what you just talked about, there's the attention that's needed in order to build trust in a relationship. The trust is still critical to capturing share wallet and that, but the attention piece continues to evolve as there's fragmentation. The third thing that you just introduced at the end is education, which needs to go into both of those first two buckets. Can you talk about education and how that used to happen and how education is happening today? And this will kind of transition into strategies. Education is happening today to win share wallet. What are leading banks and credit unions doing to educate customers to capture their attention and gain their trust?
Yeah, so with my demographic, I had a checkbook when I was in probably middle school that my allowance went into, and my parents made me balance my register and all those types of things. That doesn't occur these days. I mean, there are apps out there like Greenlight and things like that, but there are fees, and a lot of parents just don't want to pay the fees. So what you end up relying on is the school system to educate the younger consumers, and that sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't. But there's been a lot of swings and misses at financial education. So when I talk to financial institutions, first thing I ask is, are you doing financial wellness to check a box off for your board of directors, or are you really wanting to educate your customers? And if you're really wanting to educate your customers, that's way more than a blog. That's making sure that you're providing financial education to that customer at the right time when they need it, understanding who they are, where they are in their life, all those types of things. I need as an example, very different financial education than my child does, who is a teenager in high school, or a college student, or a millennial who's buying their first home. And so all those things, it's really making sure that you're tailoring it to the customer that you're talking to.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, James. I think we could stay on this topic for a while. I want to transition to the next section, which is about strategies to win share wallet. And we want to give our listeners sort of a simple, systematic approach. But before we get into that, we hear this term growing share wallet. I've read so many articles on it. I've talked to folks in different roles within our customer base, and it comes up. My question for both of you is this the right terminology? Should we be talking about share wallet?
We don't necessarily use that terminology. I'm not sure if you're asking me directly. We don't necessarily use that terminology. I mean, although that's our ultimate goal, is to be able to help our customers and make sure that we are providing as much value to the relationship by way of education or solutions for them. So it's for us, it's going deep with our customers. To educate them, to provide value to that relationship, knowing that we're going to be there for them when they need us most. And for us too, it's also, and it goes back a little bit, it's understanding them a little bit better as well. It's understanding the data that we do have, so we can present some of those some opportunities to them. Speaking to the right audience is important. Like James said, I mean, right now, I might need more education regarding retirement strategies and wealth management and things like that versus, hitting somebody like myself with, credit scoring approach and education. So I think it's hitting them with the right message. And also I think it's kind of planting the seed, because a lot of times sometimes they don't realize what they need. And so it's with the education that we do to try and plant those seeds so they want to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, and Brian, I love that idea of, kind of educating a customer to help our consumer to help them understand their unrealized need, as well as, thinking about how you can be there for them. In a utopian state, a bank or credit union wants to, serve every financial need at every financial milestone. But there is this kind of realization that maybe there are certain strengths and weaknesses within each bank and credit union, and understanding where you slot in to add value and where you advise a consumer to either maybe take a different approach or consider a different product that might be a better fit for their needs. Can you talk a little bit about what guidance that you give to banks and credit unions to have this this outside in lens versus an inside out lens, and how you guys think about that at Dart Bank?
Well, our approach is to help our customers succeed financially, and if we take that approach and not worry about our bottom line, then we'll be successful. And it really does happen that way. So, just keeping their best interest in mind, and they'll take advantage of the solutions that are right for them, as long as we present them to them. So it's focusing on their needs. It's not necessarily focusing on our own needs. And just that mindset to us is critical.
Yeah, James, anything that you'd add there? I know you're passionate about this topic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, people want to buy, they don't want to be sold. And so you want to be there and be available to them when it's time. And, just to Brian's comment earlier about, sometimes individuals don't know what they need. A great example is, even with rates at what they are, rental costs have increased so dramatically too, that it still may make sense to purchase your own home and have that equity and asset instead of paying the rental fees that have just continued to grow in this market. So that's just one, very simple example, but there's tons of them.
Yeah. Brian, moving on to the next question. We're really thankful to have you as a customer here at Total Expert, and we've talked about the combination of data, insights, and action being able to drive, your business forward, right? Both understanding who the customer is, getting real-time insights into who they are, and taking action. But we know that to be able to cross-sell between yourself and the other parts of the organization. But we know that any successful strategy includes both the people, process, and technology, right? So can you talk about the cultural shifts that have needed to take place at Dart Bank in order for you guys to leverage technology in an effective way?
Yeah, I probably the biggest culture shift that has happened for us is, I think traditionally the point of contact, whether it's a commercial lender or whether it's a residential lender or it's a retail banker, they have somewhat owned that contact, and they've protected that person. And because, I mean, certainly to give up control of somebody else now talking with their customer could be a reflection of them. And so there has to be a trust that their counterparts in other areas, whether, like I said, a commercial lender to a residential lender, is going to provide the same level of service that they would provide to their customer, because it is a reflection of them. So that for us, that was probably one of the bigger culture shifts, and when they understood that, hey, this is now a Dart Bank customer and we're going to take care of them just like you would. But the reason for that is the stickiness. The more relationships that they have with Dart Bank, the more likely they are to stay with you. And so there is some self-serving in there as well for them once they kind of give up that control of the customer and understand that, the more that they allow the bank to market and cross-sell, the better off that their own relationship will be.
Absolutely. I've got a bunch of follow-up comments, but I'm going to go to James first to see if you want to comment on what Brian just said, because I think it's a really critical point, especially with technology helping augment the relationships that are in place, of allowing not just the technology to play a role, but then allowing others to play a role, because that relationship is no longer, tightly tied to one individual, just because of the things we talked about earlier, choice and attention span. So any follow-up comments to what Brian just said, James?
No, I think what Brian said is fantastic, because it really has been silos in banking for many years, and culturally they just don't want to give up, that contact, or that individual. But in order to make sure that it's as sticky as possible, you want as many products and services into that individual. Just as you talked about share of wallet earlier, which is really essentially the same type of thing. But it's also just around making sure that you're communicating in the same way and the right way to that individual consistently across the institution. And so being able to break down, those barriers, I think is crucial.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is that technology provides that centralized place to understand what's going on with the customer. And it also can audit all the comms that are going out to that customer. And so that one of the things that you talked about, Brian, which is just this idea, it is self-serving to some degree for them to let go a little bit, but there are ways to inform them of what the benefit of their release of control is, and technology can be a conduit for them to see that and to see the impact of that, and to see that, hey, they purchased a residential mortgage as well as doing all their commercial activity, and they didn't go to another bank. They didn't go to a digital bank to do it. And so there's no risk for you in terms of the longevity of your business. And that tracking and the ability to do that within one system, I think, is something that is an education process for leaders like yourself, Brian, and James, and me as we're out in the market. But it's powerful when you see the lights go off between the lines of business and how impactful technology can be if they can relinquish some control. Any follow-up comments on that?
Yeah, the only thing I'd add, I think there is value to the consistency of that look of the marketing as well. And instead of having different systems and different, even fonts and pictures and things like that, you've got that consistent message that that a customer will grow to recognize and open, and because they know where it's coming from. I think that's critical.
Great, thank you for that, Brian. Okay, so we'll get to brass tacks a little bit. What technology is available for banks and CUs to help them deepen wallet share? I know, Brian, that you've kind of looked at some innovative things and utilizing some innovative things from Total Expert, but just broadly, do we want to talk about that quickly, James? And then Brian, maybe some of the things as you're comfortable sharing about what's helping your team at Dart. So James, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so, broadly, and one of the things I was thinking about as you were speaking earlier, there's been technology out there for a long time that would give you a single view of your customer. But the problem with it has been you're relying on your employees to log in, see what's going on, or review all of the feedback, and then leverage that in their communication. And really now with the Amazonification of interactions, you've got to allow a lot of the technology to do that for you, so that you really aren't just relying on the individuals. You're relying on the tech to streamline that communication, and as Brian said, make sure it's really in sync. Total Expert is absolutely a great way to do that. There are also some downstream technologies as well that allow to make sure that you're really customizing that very specific personalized message to that individual, which I think that'll just continue to evolve and continue to be more and more important. The other thing that came to mind is as we're continuing to struggle to grow, everyone knows that it's like 7 times more expensive to try to acquire new customers than it is to cross-sell into existing customers. So jumping those business lines or those verticals and really being able to cross-sell is crucial. I think the average institution has like 6% cross-sell between their retail base and retail mortgage, just as an example. There's just so much opportunity out there, so much white space.
Awesome, thank you for that, James. Yeah, it's something we've heard over and over again, that roughly 6% number of being able to leverage an existing relationship in another part of a bank or credit union to drive for mortgage or insurance, whatever it may be. But Brian, any specific comments on technology that has really kind of helped propel your business forward in terms of capturing share wallet?
Yeah, I would say kind of our approach when adopting new technology is first and foremost, what we do first is we identify either the problem or the opportunity first, and then the technology after that. And I think a lot of times you can get caught up, especially with tech salespeople. They're presenting the technology to you first, and then you're trying to figure out what problem or opportunity that solves. And so we try and take a little bit different approach, and we're identifying first the problem or the opportunity, and then finding the technology that fills that gap. And so I would say that I think too, I think James said it a little bit earlier, but you have to be able to speak to your customer in different ways, because people want different channels. They want to communicate. Some want to communicate via chat. Some want to be in person. Some want to only deal with email. Some want you to be available via text. And so you've got to be flexible and fluid with your technology to accommodate all of these different avenues that I think people are looking for. And then it's finding the right ROI in the technology. James said it earlier as well, but it's got to bring an ROI, and sometimes that is difficult to measure. When it comes to customer satisfaction, you try and determine your NPS off of a particular technology, your Net Promoter Score off of a particular technology, but that can be challenging as well as determining that ROI. And then I would say the other challenge that comes along with that, and James alluded to it as well, is just getting user adoption with that technology is really, really important. So you can track your ROI.
Yeah, Brian, that's great. I love the part that you talked also about the channels and how important it is, because what that showed to me is that, like, you have to understand where your customers are and their willingness to adopt technology and the channels, right? So if they're not gonna respond well to an automated series of engagement through chat on your website, maybe there's more investment in something like marketing automation, right? And so there's a prioritization based on what your customers are wanting in terms of their experience. So I think that's great. Also, you talked about the adoption and the ROI technology. It just kind of prompted a question for me before we get into sort of the details of your journey with driving change, Brian, which is, James, when you in this market condition, when banks and credit unions are looking at the ROI of technology investment, specifically for something like cross-sell, what are the parameters that they have set forth, given what's going on? Like, how are they measuring ROI? It's not just adoption maybe in today's market, it might be other factors, and have the standards changed in terms of how they measure ROI from technology?
Yes, so from my view, they have absolutely changed and become a lot more stringent. So what has happened historically is there were different ROIs that vendors would provide as part of a sales cycle, and a lot of times some of them would be really high and almost unbelievable. Getting 50x off of this or that. And CFOs oftentimes really would look at, say, a marketing ROI as too gray and really wouldn't believe in it, but they would still sign off on the deal and still buy the product. Now, in the environment that we're in, it has to be a provable ROI. It has to be a direct attribution ROI that can be tracked after, just as Brian mentioned. Now there's a lot more accountability on the senior leader who signs off on the deal to make sure that ROI is actually occurring than there ever has been. Most of the time it was an ROI historically was just a flashy thing as part of a sales cycle that helped win a buyer over, but they really weren't held accountable to that ROI. I believe that's become very different, as of late.
You are spot on. You just described my life. Yeah, that is absolutely 100% true.
Yeah, Brian, maybe as maybe building on that, like if you're giving advice to someone who's out there in your role, an SVP who's trying to drive change through technology to deepen wallet share, like what advice are you going to give them as you think about the people, process, and technology?
Yeah, I mean, James is right. You know, when a salesperson approaches you, especially on the ROI, I tell them to cut it in half. Start with cutting it, their prediction of the ROI. I ask them to cut it in half to begin with. And what advice? I would say to talk to others. Just talking with others that are using the product, and try not to allow the vendor to tee up those referral conversations as well. Find out really somebody who's using it and they're knee deep in it, and how did the implementation go, and what sort they'll tell you what that ROI is, and so for us, that's where we've had the most success with some of the technologies that we've implemented, is finding out right from the users that are using it.
Yep, that's great. And I think obviously we talked about technology that enables better engagement. We talked about technology that's going to reduce the challenge of breaking down the barriers in between lines of business within a bank or credit union. We talked about the organizational shift from, hey, this is my customer, to this is a customer of the bank or credit union. Those are all pretty big ideas, right, Brian? Like if someone walks away from this webinar who's in your shoes at a different organization, they're like, I want to get started on some of these initiatives. Like what are some of the steps that they could take in the next few weeks, either adopt technology to help shift the mindset around the customer, to start to make some impact on this challenge about growing share of wallet?
Yeah, if you're talking about, for us, our biggest lift was certainly getting our retail banking customers into Total Expert first and foremost. The ability now to market our retail banking customers. So I would strongly suggest that would be your first step, would be a banking integration. And again, if we're talking about residential, going deeper for residential mortgages, then that would be my first step. I would say, utilize the insights that are available, specifically the credit triggers and or the listing alerts. So, understanding when one of your customers is in fact listing their home for sale is critical. I mean, you've got data that's just readily available that you can make that outbound call. So, monitor what you can, surveying your customers, understanding them, what their needs are, surveying your own staff, what sort of questions are they getting, that you can now use to educate, because that's a great way that with what you can come up with your content is just simply asking, your loan officers, asking your retail bankers, what sort of questions are you consistently getting? So, that way you'll know how you can educate. Evaluating and understanding your data. I think, that's a bigger step, certainly, but you've got a gold mine of data that's out there, for your retail banking customers. You can see where they're banking, you can see where their debts are at, you can see their payment behaviors. So, you can really dive deep into your data as well. And then educate them. Educate them as much as you can. I would say those are probably the steps that I would take. I mean, obviously that's a very broad steps, but at the same time, I think those are things that I would do to start immediately with.
Yeah, and I think those are things that we've seen with our customers right away, Brian, that they've been able to find value in 6 to 8 weeks, which is first understand where the opportunities are by monitoring not just what's going on within one division of your organization. Monitor all divisions of your organization that you can to find out where there's opportunity, maybe not for that division, but for another division of your bank credit union. And then also, I loved what you said specifically around making sure that you understand the questions that are going on, that are being asked in the day-to-day interaction with consumers, because that will inform your education strategy. And having automation and ways to do that in an effective way at scale is great, but you need to understand what those foundational things that you need to educate consumers on today that are critical. So James, any other things that you would add to what Brian said, specifically around folks who are on the line who want to take some steps within the next few days on how to start to deepen share of wallet with their customers?
Yeah, so first off, what I would say is that change starts at the top, and you need to have leaders like Brian at your financial institution with a mindset like Brian to be able to think of things outside the box, to be able to really drive that change down within the organization. Change really does start at the top. And then one of the things that Brian said that I actually wrote an article about recently that I think is super important is surveying. We used to, as an industry, do what was called a relationship survey. We did those a long time, which is asking your customers not just about a transaction, but how they think about the institution, what's their next product that they're going to purchase, what is important about that product, all those things. Well, then over the past few years, we shifted to really more what I would call transaction surveys, like NPS scoring and sending a survey after a teller transaction, things like that. And I think that was really because just the volume of transactions that we were dealing with, we wanted to make sure we were doing them well. I think that there's going to be a pivot now where we got to go back to, so maybe not a pivot, but an incremental, where we've got to get some more, relationship surveys and some more staff surveys to really know what people are thinking, because the NPS, does do a lot of great things, but it doesn't give us a lot of insight around affinity for the brand and what they're thinking about. And so that's just something that Brian mentioned that I think is worth reinforcing.
Yep, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, a wealth of knowledge between the two of you. Again, a promise of this webinar series is to show the proof is available in the Total Expert platform, and the concepts that we talked about today, our customers can actually achieve success by utilizing our technology. So we have the one and only Samantha Thielen here to go through a demo of how we can help with cross-sell and deepen share of wallet. And I'll just kick her off. Obviously, a comprehensive customer profile is key, and then combining some of the customer insights that Brian talked about with intelligent automation are going to be a big part of your success. So with that, Samantha, I'll pass it to you for a demo.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, everybody. And what you've been talking about in today's webinar is precisely what I want to show in the demonstration today. So again, successful financial institutions are really looking at breaking down barriers between their different divisions and looking at their customers more holistically. So Total Expert is going to allow you to actually bring in all of your databases and then be able to look at really who your customers are and what their needs are in this exact moment. One of the best ways to do that is with customer intelligence, which is a native offering within Total Expert to be able to actually set up monitoring criteria for things like those credit alerts or listing insights. So in this way, you'll know when any of your existing customers, this is not just your past mortgage customers, this is anybody at your financial institution has, for example, inquired for a mortgage loan with another lender. And so what we're able to do is by integrating directly with your core database or your data warehouse, we're able to help you monitor those customers and then take action. So again, before we get into the action, I do just want to highlight, so again, the credit inquiry and listing alerts are real moments in time where you are receiving real-time data to understand what your customers are doing and how you can help them. This is an indicator that a customer of yours, whether or not they've been involved with your mortgage team, is showing indications that they would actually need education or need that partnership from your institution. What we can also offer are equity and rate alerts, which is being able to set up thresholds to understand, based on closed loan information, when somebody's reached a certain threshold of equity or when somebody would actually benefit from what the market rates are right now. And so your team is really able to configure exactly what you want that workflow to look like once this data actually hits the system. So again, really understanding your institution's strengths, being able to cater to, a home equity line of credit or a cash out refi. Again, being able to use this data, but then to be able to plug that data in automatically to actually take action at the right time with the right message. So what I'm showing next is actually the journey canvas, which is where your marketing admin teams are really able to configure exactly what happens when this data hits the Total Expert platform. Or I should say, when the Total Expert platform generates this insight. So in this example, this is a banking customer who has inquired for a mortgage loan with another lender. And so what's going to happen is the very first thing we're going to do is actually check to see whether or not they have a mortgage loan on file previously. And so what that's going to do is actually dictate which workflow takes place, because at the end of the day, Total Expert is here to help you humanize these relationships. So if there is that previous history, what we want to do is actually trigger that on behalf of the loan officer who actually has that existing relationship with this customer already. But in the market today, typically banks, the mortgage penetration rate is about 5%. So we know that the majority of these credit alerts that are going to happen will happen when there's no pre-existing relationship with the mortgage team. So what we can do from there is actually within our system, look at data to understand maybe geographically where this customer is. In this example, we're looking at which branch this customer is associated with to decide what's the right team to route this to. So what's happening is we're actually using all of your really big wealth of data to best get this opportunity in front of the right loan officer who can then partner with this customer. And so of course, when we create a lead based on who that right team is, we're going to automatically route that to the right loan officer and then notify them where they can then log into the platform and work on educating that customer, helping them through this process. What we're also going to do in this automation is be able to automatically, proactively educate and nurture your customer. So this is an example of an email that would go out as that opportunity has been created to really almost help with a warm handoff. Hey, you've trusted us before. Here's how you can trust us with this as well. The last piece that I want to touch on as we talk about journeys and we talk about this action that takes place is Total Expert actually is going to provide out of the box journeys with these insights so that your team doesn't need to necessarily build this from scratch. But what we will do is work with you to really configure this so that it fits what your ideal customer experiences look like. And so again, this was an example of a credit insight journey, but again, it would be creating journeys for each of those different insights. And then we can also look at more holistically how to help your team really surface opportunities and automatically educate and inform and build those relationships with your customers. And so the very last piece that I wanted to touch on is, again, the loan officer's interaction with these customers is vital as well. So being able to take action automatically, being able to proactively use things like email and SMS is a great way to take timely action and ensure that every single opportunity is acted on. But most importantly, we're pulling in that loan officer at the right time to be able to then log in, understand exactly what's happening. So in this case, Sierra has pulled her credit with another lender, being able to see things like what journey she's on, so I can actually understand that she's on that customer intelligence journey, and even being able to see things like those most recent email communications that were sent on my behalf. So being able to engage with Sierra now I'm going to be able to have a timely and relevant and effective engagement because of all of that automation and insight and data that's happening in the background. So again, Total Expert is really supporting not just holistically at the enterprise level, you know, your team actually understanding these opportunities, taking action, educating, but we're also helping build and enhance these one-to-one relationships and human engagements with your teams as well. So with that, I can go ahead and stop screen sharing. Again, today we're just going to do a quick little high-level demo about how to uncover buried treasure within your database. So with that, Ryan, I can hand it back over to you.
Samantha, always amazed at how much value and how much education you can give our viewers in just a few minutes. So it was great. I think one of the things I loved that you showed at the end was just the loan officer experience, because it's not just about the organization and driving the leads, but if the producers don't have that engagement in a way that's systematic and they feel like they know what's going on with that potential borrower or consumer, that there's going to be lack of adoption, which is what a big part that what Brian talked about earlier of driving the change. So, but the thing I also love about that, what you showed, is just everyone right now is a little bit, and we're seeing this in the chat, is a little bit apprehensive about what's going in the market. A lot of consumers are, are reluctant to shift money. They're reluctant to make changes, and this is a way to find opportunities that exist right within your database. So I think it's really exciting to see this solution for our customers and folks who are considering Total Expert as a partner to grow. So I think with that, there were quite a few questions in the chat. I'm going to try to summarize a few of them into one, which is really about some of the challenges banks and credit unions are facing around consumer trust, given the SVB situation. But so my question I'm going to start with James and then Brian. What are some of the press headlines that banks and credit unions are fighting today? And why do you think that they're fighting them in such sort of in a material way?
Yes, so consumer confidence is probably at an all-time low right this second, and it really shouldn't be. And so that's what I believe banks and credit unions are fighting right now is how do you separate yourselves from an SVB situation and understand that, yes, obviously the deposits are insured, federally insured, the same at Dart Bank as they are Bank of America. So there's no need to move, from a regional bank to a large bank. That and then just in general, even if they weren't federally insured, most banks and credit unions are fiscally sound and financially sound. And the only way to make them unfinancially sound is to start pulling deposits like crazy. So just continue to move forward. But what a lot of institutions haven't done well is communicate with their customers and members about that topic. There's been a lot out there that have, but there's quite a few that just haven't taken that proactive, over communication route, in my view.
Yeah, Brian, anything that you'd add to that?
No, it was spot on. I would say the media is certainly not doing us any favors when it comes to that, and because it's not, in my opinion, a real threat. And so we did in fact communicate, especially after the SVB that Monday, that happened, that weekend after it happened, that Monday, we did get a communication out from our president and CEO. And now we kind of struggle with, do we really continue to communicate that? Do we make something of it that really isn't there? I think for 95% of the consumers, they probably think nothing of it, and there might be a few that do. And so do you really, it's trying to figure out if we should be still communicating about it.
Yep. And Brian, what I love is the diligence that Dart is going through, because in moments like this is the opportunity often for that maybe 5% where there's some trepidation for you to win them for life, right? To double down, over communicate, show them that you care, and then that's flow into the share wallet that we've been talking about, and really caring about what matters to them. So there's quite a few others, but I think we've highlighted most of them throughout our discussion. And we will follow up with the ones that there's a few very kind of specific questions around what Sam showed to the product that might be for individual use cases. So we'll take those as one-off. So with that, Brian, I wanted to thank you for joining us, for being a part of the TE family. James, as always, for your insights as a general manager for banking and credit unions, and Samantha for the great demo and for joining us today as well. And that will conclude our webinar for the Total Expert, for Expert Solutions. And thanks everyone. We'll see you on another one soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.